Nurses are, after all, just inferior versions of doctors. If you defy me, you won't get away with it.
This is what a female doctor at the hospital I was hired at said to me with disdain after I had achieved my dream of becoming a nurse. My name is Megan Anderson. I was a very mischievous child, more active than the boys around. One day, as usual, I was playing outside and climbed a tall tree in the neighborhood we were told not to climb and ended up falling from it. Having suffered a compound fracture in my leg, I was hospitalized for the first time in my life. At that time, I met a kind nurse, which made me want to become a nurse in the future. From that day on, my tomboyish behavior disappeared, and I became dedicated to studying. Over a decade later, I finally realized my dream of becoming a nurse and was hired at a certain community hospital. Due to certain circumstances, I became a nurse a few years later than my peers. I was worried that a new nurse, older in age, might not be welcomed. But the community hospital I was hired at seemed to be struggling with severe staffing shortages, and the nurses in the ward welcomed me, saying, "Finally, we have more colleagues.
If you need anything, just ask."
Well, there are some scary doctors. Speak of the devil, here she comes.
The person pointed out by one of the nurses was a certain female doctor.
She is Dr. Brown, a pediatrician.
Is she a scary person?
Rather, she looks down on nurses. It seems she thinks of us as her servants.
Then, perhaps overhearing our conversation, Dr. Brown suddenly looked our way and approached with her heels clicking.
You, the new nurse.
Yes. Nice to meet you. My name is Ander.
All nurses are the same to me. I won't be calling your name, so spare me the introduction.
Oh. Stunned and at a loss for words, Dr. Brown continued to speak harshly.
Nurses are, after all, just inferior versions of doctors. If you defy me, you won't get away with it. Well,
yes.
Very well.
With that, she walked away, her heels clicking. From that day on, every time I met Dr. Brown, she would make sarcastic remarks.
You have such a clumsy face. It's good that you weren't assigned to my pediatrics department.
Her sarcasm seemed to be at a level where I wondered if it was her way of greeting. While being bullied by Dr. Brown, I worked hard every day as a nurse, which was my dream. Most of the other doctors were kind, and my fellow nurses also supported me, an inexperienced person, earnestly. To repay everyone, I wanted to become a respectable nurse as soon as possible. Then, one day, the notice came suddenly.
You are short-staffed in the ER, okay? Understood. I will send support.
Receiving instructions from a senior nurse, I headed to the emergency center. There, a scene I had never seen before unfolded.
Come over here quickly. Treat this patient.
We don't have enough tools or people. Gather them from around the hospital.
The pulse is defibrillator.
Several patients were being rushed into the emergency center. While I was standing in astonishment, new patients were being brought in. What happened? I asked a senior nurse next to me while preparing.
It seems there was a large-scale fire in the city. Many injured, and the surrounding ERs are all full.
No way.
Unfortunately, we have fewer doctors today. We have to cope with the staff we have now.
Then Dr. Brown arrived a little later than us.
Doctor, please attend to this patient over here.
Dr. Brown, much like me, is staring at this scene in astonishment.
Dr. Brown.
Yes.
Called insistently by the emergency medical team, she heads in that direction. Before her eyes lies a small child severely burnt.
Doctor, please help.
I can't. I've never treated such severe burns.
It seems Dr. Brown has been working as a pediatrician all this time and has never dealt with such a situation. While this is happening, the child's breathing is becoming weaker.
What should I do?
With the weakening child before her eyes, Dr. Brown, teary-eyed, whispers in distress. Seeing this, I make a certain resolution. Out of the way. I'll handle this.
What?
I have a medical license. I believe I can be more useful than you are now. While reprimanding Dr. Brown, I quickly proceed to treat the child. All right, vitals are stable. Next. After that, I continue treating patients one after another until it is late at night. Finally getting a break, I step out of the emergency center. All the patients we attended to have been saved. Their survival now depends on their vitality. It's true that I have a medical license. When I said I wanted to be a nurse, my grandfather said this to me.
Aim to be a doctor instead of a nurse. It's more secure for the future.
Unable to convince my grandfather, who forcefully insisted. And he was paying for my education to become a nurse. So I couldn't defy him, and, respecting and loving my grandfather, aimed to obtain a medical license as he wished. Working in a hospital is the same. The study is hard, but it's rewarding. And I did successfully get my medical license and even worked in a large hospital. The experience there played a crucial role in this emergency. However, seeing the nurses who tirelessly support not only the patients, but also us doctors, I strongly feel that I want to be a nurse after all. Later, I obtained a nursing license and got hired by this city hospital. And here I am now. I never thought my medical license would come in handy like this. Thinking that I have to thank my grandpa, I hear the familiar sound of heels. Dr. Brown, good job.
Yeah, good job.
After being scolded by me, Dr. Brown snapped back to reality and helped treat the patients earnestly. While supporting her at times, we overcame this difficult situation together.
I'm sorry.
What?
I was so rude to you. You saved so many people.
She apologized sincerely to me. I can't believe it's the same person. Panicked, I grabbed Dr. Brown by the shoulders and raised her head. Stop it. I just fulfilled my duty as a licensed medical professional.
I have a medical license too, but I tried to run away from my responsibilities. You are an honorable person. Unlike me.
Feeling embarrassed being praised by Dr. Brown, I scratch my head as if to dodge.
By the way, why are you working as a nurse in this hospital? With your skills, you could have had plenty of offers.
I've always wanted to be a nurse. Nurses who support patients and doctors are indispensable in hospitals. Upon hearing this, Dr. Brown lowered her shoulders and looked down.
Yes, you're right. Nurses do support doctors, but I just can't stand nurses.
Dr. Brown revealed shocking details. She has loved children since she was young and became a pediatrician to save as many children as possible.
I'm ashamed of myself for being unable to save the suffering child before my eyes. I'm disqualified as someone holding a medical license.
Dr. Brown wasn't hostile to nurses from the beginning. However, one day, she happened to witness a nurse mistreating her own child hospitalized in another hospital.
I heard from another nurse later. My child needed assistance with meals, but she didn't feed him properly, deliberately dropping food on the floor.
That's awful.
There were many other terrible things she did. She took away the toys I brought for my child and smirked while watching my child cry.
Thanks to Dr. Brown's complaint, that nurse was forced to resign. But since then, she has harbored resentment against the existence of nurses themselves.
I blamed the other nurses. Why didn't they stop her? My child was deeply hurt by that nurse.
That nurse was quite experienced, and other nurses couldn't go against her.
I understand that even doctors can't go against the hierarchy. But I asked that nurse why she did such things. Do you know what she answered? It's for stress relief.
She revealed why she despised nurses and behaved that way toward me. Such a person is disqualified as a nurse. It's natural for you to hate her.
But it's still unforgivable to treat you, who are unrelated, in such a manner.
Certainly, that is true. But But you apologized properly. I won't blame a person who admits their fault and apologizes any further. I offered my hand with a smile. Let's shake hands to make up. From now on, let's work hard together as colleagues in the same hospital. Dr. Brown, looking a bit surprised, then with a gentle smile, kindly shook my hand. Days later, all the patients brought in that day recovered safely. The director decided not to punish me, even though I acted medically as a nurse. Furthermore, I was offered to work as a doctor, but I respectfully declined since my dream was to become a nurse. And about Dr. Brown.
Dr. Brown, can you join the girls' night out this time?
Yes, of course. The place is the usual cafe, right?
Yes, looking forward to it.
She is now amiably addressed by other nurses and responds with a smile. After reconciling with me, Dr. Brown apologized to each nurse individually. I accompanied her, explaining the circumstances. As a result, all the nurses in the hospital forgave her.
Knowing the circumstances, we can't help but forgive her.
Yeah. Anyway, that nurse, I can't believe she's human.
I wish she hadn't called herself a nurse.
They said, expressing their anger together. Seeing the nurses like this, Dr. Brown seemed about to cry.
The nurses in our hospital are all wonderful people. I was a fool for not being involved with them before.
We should get involved more from now on. All right, let's work hard today as well. Saying this, I give a gentle pat on the back of Dr. Brown. She looks at me and beams a smile. Life is unpredictable. I, who was a tomboyish and mischievous child, changed dramatically after encountering nursing. My grandfather told me to aim to be a doctor, but I just couldn't give up my dream of being a nurse. I obtained my nursing license and was hired at a community hospital, where I encountered an unexpected major accident. I deepened bonds with Dr. Enders and my reliable nursing colleagues. Life is a series of unexpected events. That's why life is enjoyable. I want to continue to live diligently, without forgetting to be grateful for the encounters and bonds with the people around me.